Hi, I'm Elise and I'm a music therapist doing an exploratory systematic literature review on dance and dance movement therapy. Could you see in that tango clip that there is true improvisation, whether they were waiting for each other, creating a third space of unpredictable negotiation, jointly created just-in-time executive brain decisions that create a reciprocal synchrony, just as we do in everyday conversations. This is connection, and this is what forms high social bonding. When I looked into research on dance movement therapy, DMT, I found that it included no music, generally, only movement, although the word dance is in it. So DMT generally uses psychological interventions with a therapist and explores themes verbally and through movement only. Two recent literature reviews had only 3 and 8 studies. So to do this review, I included dance with music and ended up with 24 studies with 3 concurrent qualitative studies. So the research question was, which components of dance or music cause depression reduction? And are different types of dance effective for different client groups? One thing was certain, dance reduces depression depending on how the culture is created and how the dance is used, but it's effective from moderate to large effect sizes. I thought that if I took into account the depth of understanding of music and dance shown in their premise, that this might show the culture created within the dance. Because Cochrane's risk of bias wasn't really relevant here. I mean, you couldn't blind the intervention because it was dance, and it was very patchy whether the researchers were blinded as well. But including the premise would create a level of awareness of bias. We went through the usual Prisma screening process, but because there was so little written about any individual components of dance or music, I devised my own measure. Rhythmic entrainment, which I'll explain in a minute. Mirroring, either in twos or groups or circle. Nostalgia, where the music is known. Stimulatory music, it could be fast, it could be mandolin. Improvisation and mindfulness had a high correlation. In order to improvise, you have to be in the moment. And all this led up to an assessment of high social bonds and any exercise effect. What is rhythmic entrainment? Well, have you ever put on loud, fast music while driving and found yourself going really too fast? Or imagine soldiers, how much easier it is for them to march together to a drum beat or the sound of their own feet. That is your brain sending out electronic messages along the nerves with the right timing to move your muscles in the right time, coordinated, being affected by the beat of the auditory signal coming in. It's entraining itself to the beat. And what we see in tango is both, so it makes it really special. We have rhythmic entrainment to a strong beat, da, da, and high improvisation within that interval. And here's an example of the measure that I devised for components of dance and music. Here's mindfulness level. And we can see that the two belly dance here were high tango, 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 and the rest of the DMT dances were high in mindfulness, including one Tai Chi. So would you like to know which dances you can recommend for which clients? There were 4 subgroups, and here the premise became critical. If dance was viewed as exercise, then there were low to no statistical significant results, apart from one ballroom study, which was one-to-one, the only one-to-one study, but it was taught by the author of that study. There were two large Chinese public square dancing studies, both not statistically significant. One of them was 1 hour 5 times a week for 12 weeks, outside in all weathers. Being Chinese, dropout rates were okay. And there was one Korean which used music really as motivation in the acute phase of having had a stroke. The first 2 weeks, it was great results for flexion of the wrist and hand and the elbow, but not for depression. So generally, results for exercise, contrary to popular opinion, only last as long as you do the exercise, whichever results you're talking about. The second subgroup is dance for breast cancer survivors. So one belly dance study and one Greek traditional dancing study decreased depression by a huge 35% on Beck's depression inventory. So belly dance is excellent for increasing sexuality and your body image, for affirmation of this, allowing you to recognize your own somatic markers in the improvisation that you do individually or with a partner. And because you hold your arms up, it increases upper body strength without you even realizing it, to that lovely, soft, sensual Arabic music as it motivates you to express yourself in this art form. Greek traditional dancing, think Mamma Mia, Smashing Plates, Meryl Streep, George Clooney. So the element of fun, the element of mirroring as you do the circle dancing, the touch, which lowers cortisol, and the partners, which raises testosterone. And the music, that stimulatory mandolin, it's high-pitched, it's fast, and all that rhythmic entrainment. No improvisation at all. So mindfulness levels could be fairly low here. But the emphasis on enjoyment again in both studies leading to high social bonding from the outside in, as it were. Interestingly, there was another belly dance study from the same university in Brazil. Now, that had low effect size. It was 4% on the BDI. I looked at the premise, and the emphasis here was on technique, so not on enjoyment. So using instructors, it very much depends where the emphasis is, and that depends on their understanding of what music and dance can do for you. The third subgroup was dance for older adults. And there were a couple of studies, jazz and Turkish folk dance for healthy participants, no significant change there, but there were 4 rigorous ones, 2 ballroom, 1 tango, and 1 just using simple dance steps. They all showed a pattern. All 4 of them were set in a community setting, and the intervention duration was around 12 weeks, except for one, which was 10 months long, and that was funded by the Greek Alzheimer's Association. And all of them had an emphasis on fun. I mean, let's face it, you're not going to get older adults coming back if it's not at least pleasant. So there were 2 commonalities left at this point that could possibly be the reason for decrease in depression. That was music or high social bonds. And one education group, there were 2 studies set in the US of A. One education group, they had a large decrease where the author, Madeline Hackney, actually confirmed that this group had formed close bonds. Dropout rates were high for a couple of studies, but that's to be expected with older adults as well. So the forerunner at this point was high social bonds. So all the results for the last subgroup, dance movement therapy / mindfulness, were excellent. And if I take the 2 most effective studies and show the results to you, bearing in mind anything over 0.8 is a large effect size. Then the tango at 8 weeks, based in a metropolitan area of Sydney with moderate to severe depression. Here we have depression, insomnia, mindfulness, satisfaction with life increase, all improved at the 1 month follow-up. And a qualitative report that says that people had to pay attention, high mindfulness, and it was enjoyable and challenging. Whereas the meditation group participants showed non-significant improvement post-test. The DMT, dance movement therapy with no music, again, a large decrease in depression, and interestingly, the body image score was 63% alleviation, which was in correlation with the decrease in depression, and nearly maintained at a 3-month follow-up. And one important thing to say is that dance movement therapy and tango or ballroom have moderate to large decreases in effect size for moderate to severe depression with or without antidepressants, and can be adapted for people that are in wheelchairs or have a disability, and for the older adult as well. So what I discovered was 2 pathways to high social bonding. Pathway 1, from the inside out, DMT with no music, always uses a therapist with psychological interventions, lots of free movement improvisation. And the main difference then with dance with music, you'd have an instructor, emphasis on enjoyment with stimulatory music and rhythmic entrainment. Now, some dances will straddle both pathways because they have high improvisation even within that beat. Tango is one of them. And the DMT term at the end is attuned interoceptive sensing, which approximates to the musical therapy term embodied temporal synchrony, both leading to high social bonds. We have 3 floaters here: intervention, duration, nostalgia, and community setting. But even 2 to 4 weeks of intensive dance, such as with the biodanza or the tango, can significantly reduce depression. Here's a video clip from my work in music interaction therapy. 9 months before this, 7-year-old Sam used to be in his own world. Notice how the music acts like happy glue to enhance their high social bonds.
Is my ice cream still there, or is it melting now? Wow, that's a magical ice cream. It lasted for 2 whole days. I think now we can go looking for the windmills.
Looking for the windmills?
Windmills up in the hills. Do you think so?
I can just fly a kite.
So let's fly the kite.
And the balloons.
Okay.
Hold on, toys.
Let's fly the kite. Look.
Hold on. The camper fan's going to fly.
The cameraman's going to fly because of the kite. Go fly, go fly.
It's the fan.
Wow. Oh, that's perfect. We're flying high and higher and higher. Oh, but the wind is so strong. I need to hold your hand. I'm scared. It's so windy up here.
Hold on to my arm.
I'll hold your arm. Oh, the wind is blowing us around. Wow. We'll land soon. We'll have to land.
There it is. The windmill sail.
Oh, the windmill.
Oh, no, we're going to crash.
No, don't crash into the windmill. I can fix it. Perfect. Good idea.
So in my work as music therapist, I've seen how music can create and scaffold social reciprocity and playful therapeutic interaction, gives you auditory pleasure, that could be motivation and reward. Physical expression can be reflected in musical shapes to enhance and create small step co-regulation, being together in the music. So, future research, 3 groups: DMT without music, DMT with live improvised music, and 1 tango group then. Frame by frame video analysis could evidence any correlation between that temporal synchrony that's growing in the mutual reciprocity and any decrease in depression. And not only depression, but mindfulness, stress and anxiety could be measured. You could use salivary markers and heart rate values, for example, to measure for stress physiologically. In summary, healthcare providers and counsellors can recommend local dance classes as long as there are high social bonds known to be present through enjoyment or improvisation. Tango and ballroom and dance movement therapy especially can be recommended as first-line treatments even before meditation and exercise. Dance classes could be offered at centres like the Centre for Mindfulness and Research in Bangor, for instance. So, strengths and limitations. Well, there was high heterogeneity between only 24 studies, but 2/3 were of high quality, rigorous, and including all types of design, I believe allowed us to be more inclusive and look at the premise as well, which identified the 2 pathways to high social bonding. Diolch am wrando. Thank you for listening. Any questions, you can email me on elisegwilym@gmail.com or this YouTube channel today. Diolch.